Hello and welcome to this recording of the Studying at Home Effectively webinar. For the purposes of this recording, all activities and participant interaction during the live webinar has been removed. In this session, we will be covering ways that you can plan, and organise your time more effectively while studying at home, and we're also going to look at some digital tools and apps to help with this. We're going to look at how we can access the online resources and use these more effectively, and we're also going to touch on health and well-being and look at ways that we can reduce our stress and anxiety during this time. Studying at home is a new experience for both students and staff, especially during this time where we have no option but to study at home. We do need to accept that we're not going to find it as easy to concentrate on our work as we normally do. Everyone will feel thrown off and not as normal at the moment, and both academics and other university staff will be feeling the same and will have empathy for you and understanding of the situation. And this is okay. It's okay not to feel normal at the moment. However, what we do want to do is try and study as effectively as possible. So here's some tips to get started. Firstly, I would recommend setting up a specific dedicated study area or workspace within your home. A separate room if possible, perhaps just a specific area in your bedroom, somewhere where there's a desk or a table with adequate space and light for you to study more effectively. I would also recommend planning a daily routine, and we're going to look at this idea of planning routines in a little bit more detail. This will help with feelings of normality and getting into a headspace where effective study is possible. And thirdly, we want to try and minimise distractions as much as we possibly can. We're all distracted at the moment more than usual, so we want to try and minimise what we can more than usual as well. For example, this may be other people. So could you let other people in your household know when you're studying and ask them not to disturb you or interrupt you at certain times? Do you have the possibility to move into a separate room away from other people in your household? And this might not be during the hours that you normally like to study. We may need to adapt our study times around other people in our household as well. We also want to remove distractions such as mobile phones, TV, social media perhaps, and we're going to look at identifying our distractions in more detail later in the session. Something that will help us is being as organised as we possibly can. So you might already have things that work for you, such as specific filing methods, ways that you organise physical notes, digital tools that you already use. You may work from to-do lists and planners and so on. I will firstly recommend checking our emails and our VLE area as much as we possibly can. It's really important that we stay informed at the moment, and we will have lots of changes and new pieces of information coming through regularly. So I would suggest that we check our emails at least once a day, and you might even want to set yourself up a routine where you check them at certain times, so that this will allow you to have some organisation in terms of when you're accessing certain systems. We also want to make sure we're keeping good track of everything that we need to do and when, and of all the important information we're receiving. We might usually be people that have quite good memories and don't necessarily need to write everything down, but at the moment our memory and concentration might not be as it normally is, and so it's important that we're writing things down to keep track of everything we need to know. We also need to be aware of any changes to our timetables. So some of our usual timetable sessions may have been replaced by online live sessions at the same time, but we may have had changes to our timetable, and I would check your online timetable and also your Moodle area or OWL area and emails from staff to make sure you know where you're supposed to be and when. I would also recommend organising your work area. So if you've got a physical space that is organised, this will help with organisation in your brain as well. Try and make it as easy as possible for yourself with having what you most regularly need and use to hand. And lastly, I would recommend setting yourself notifications and reminders. Again, because our concentration and memory is perhaps not as good as it normally is at the moment, this will help us and remind us of where we're supposed to be and when, what we're supposed to be doing. We're going to look now at how we plan our time. So I would firstly suggest creating a planner for the whole semester from now until the end. Find a system that works for you, so you may be quite a physically visual person and prefer something like a handwritten diary or a big wall planner. You may be somebody who prefers digital tools, so we can use things like our Outlook calendar or some of the other Microsoft applications and other mobile apps, which we're going to look at in more detail. I would work backwards by adding in all the assignment deadlines you have, and then anything else that we need to prepare for. So that might be preparation for seminars or workshops we still have taking place, but also that assignment preparation as well. We want to add in anything that is not related to university that's going to take up your time. That might be childcare, that might be a job if you're still working, it might be exercise. And something else that really helps me is to colour code things. So in my particular calendar, I've colour-coded things by type of appointments. So student appointments are one colour, teaching is another colour, staff meetings is another colour, for example. You might find it useful to colour-code by different module or assignment, and this will help you at a quick glance to see what you have connected to each individual module or assignment coming up and how that time is spread out over the whole semester. Once you have your semester plan, I would then recommend daily planning as well. This is going to help us feel as normal as we possibly can, and it's going to allow us to add some structure back into our day. I would recommend trying to replicate your day on campus as much as possible. So for example, if you normally have one module on a Monday, a different module on a Tuesday, and another one on a Thursday, for example, you may want to try and work to a system that replicates this. So you have everything that you need to do in terms of recordings, perhaps assignment prep, reading and research for that particular module on a certain day. I would also recommend setting realistic goals when we're doing our daily planning. So don't try and give ourselves so much to do that it's unachievable, because this will make us feel even worse than we already do about what we're managing to get done. We want to be able to set ourselves SMART goals where we can actually meet these, and this will help us to feel more productive as we can see that we are reaching our goals. If you're feeling overwhelmed by the amount of things that you need to do, I would recommend writing a large to-do list that lists everything you need to do, and then each day just prioritising 5 things from this. And it's important not just to pick the ones that we like first. We need to really prioritise these in order of importance. So that might be based on things like deadlines, also involvement from other students. So if you're doing a group work project, and you know that other people can't get on with something until you've done a specific task, that may add to the prioritisation of that task. We also need to remember to take regular breaks. Working smarter does not mean working longer or working more, it means working more effectively. So we're going to look at a specific system of planning and organising our time, including breaks, a little later on in the session. Some other ideas for managing our time is about thinking of how we can use that spare time effectively. So if we have set timetable sessions with gaps in between, look at your list of tasks and work out what can fit into those gaps that you have. Sometimes it's difficult to know how long certain tasks will take, so as we start to track how long they take, that will help us with future planning. But we also need to accept that some of the tasks that we may already have an idea of how long they take may be taking longer at the moment. And that's fine, that's to be expected in the current situation. Something that we're all finding difficult right now will be being distracted, and especially being distracted more so than usual. And this is known as procrastination, when we're putting off tasks we need to do other things. firstly, I would recommend working out when and where you work best. And in terms of where you work best, that might be a little bit difficult at the moment because we are slightly restricted on where we can work. So within your home, work out where you work best. But at the moment particularly, we can control when we work best perhaps. So we will have high energy times and low energy times. And we need to try and split up the tasks that we do so that we're tackling those challenging tasks in the high energy times and leaving those low energy, simple tasks that we don't need to put much thought and effort into for our low energy times. We then want to identify our time sponges, so the things that are distracting us, the things that we turn to when we're off task, and work out how to avoid them. So that might be easier for some things. So if you are always being distracted by notifications on your phone, and you immediately pick your phone up as soon as you see it light up with a notification, then an easy solution there would be to turn your phone off whilst you're studying. Another thing we can do is use distractions as rewards. So if your distraction is perhaps getting a snack or watching the next episode of your favourite TV show, playing a specific game, checking social media, you can set all these things as rewards to do in your break times. We're going to look at a specific technique that will help us focus and also incorporate breaks called the Pomodoro Technique in a moment. Something else I would recommend is cueing yourself in. So creating a study routine that helps you get started, because getting started can sometimes be the most difficult thing. Once we get started and get into that routine, it can be a little bit easier. So what I'd recommend is setting yourself up a set routine at the start of each study period, and it might be things like switching off certain devices, doing mindfulness exercises, going to specific locations and getting certain equipment out or setting out the space in a particular way, and perhaps making sure you've got any refreshments and snacks that you'll need whilst you're studying so that you're not being distracted and moving away from that set study space to get those during your study session. So the Pomodoro Technique is based on the fact that we're not very good at multitasking. Our brain is structured to do one thinking task at a time. So if we try to multitask and keep switching around between the tasks that we're doing, we're not actually putting enough thought and effort into any of them individually and not doing any of them to the best of our ability. So in order to study using the Pomodoro Technique, what we want to do is create this master to-do list of all of our tasks, and we want to prioritise them, as we talked about earlier. So perhaps selecting just our 5 important things we need to get done that day. We then want to identify the most important task out of our 5, and that's what we're going to focus on to start with. And we're going to work in study blocks of 25 minutes. So we're going to set a timer and turn off all the distractions that we can, and work for 25 minutes on our most important task. And then we're going to take a 5-minute break. If this task is then completed, great, we can tick it off our list and move on to the next important task. But if it's not, we can carry on working on that. And we're going to do 4 of these Pomodoros of 25-minute study in a row with our 5-minute breaks. But after we've done our 4th one, we're going to take a longer 30-minute break. So it's not good for us to study for too long at a time. We do need to build in these regular breaks in order to make sure we're focusing our brain effectively. Now we know that some of you prefer to work in study environments where you're surrounded by other people, such as the library, as this helps to motivate you to study. So what we've done is we've created some online webinar versions to try and replicate this study environment for you. These are called Shut Up and Study sessions, and you can find them on the workshop calendar from the home page of the Study Off Campus webpage. Now, if you are finding it hard to study without others around you, then these will be useful webinars for you. You will join other students hosted by a library staff member, and the library staff member will time and structure the study session for you using the Pomodoro format of the 25-minute of study with 5 minutes of break, and this will be repeated 4 times. The library staff member will be there to answer any questions that you have and do the timekeeping. Now, I've mentioned earlier on about some digital tools and apps to help you with organisation and planning, and these are a couple that you can find through the Office package. So if you go to office.com and sign in with your student email address and password, you will then get access to the collection of Microsoft Office applications that you can access. So OneNote is almost like a physical notebook that's replicated in digital format. So you can just write on it if you like, but because it's digital, it's got lots of interactivity options. So you can add in files from the other Microsoft Office applications, you can add in clippings to articles perhaps, website links, embedded audio and video footage, and you can also organise the pages as you would do with physical note paper as well into specific folders and so on. You can also share your OneNote pages with other people, so if you're working on a group project, for example, that would be useful there. The other one is Planner, so this is more of a task management app. So if you're working on something like an assignment where you want to see all the tasks that you need to do for that particular assignment, you can then use something like Microsoft Office Planner to separate out those tasks. You can assign them deadlines, you can give specific detail about what needs to be done and break them down as much as you need to. And again, in terms of group work, if you're doing a group project, you can add all of the group team members to a particular plan, and you can actually assign different tasks to different members of the team as well. If you prefer to use mobile or tablet applications, here are just a selection of organisation and planning apps that are available. These have been selected because they're all free and available on both Android and iOS devices. And again, they replicate the same kind of tasks, so assigning work, tracking deadlines, managing your workload, notes, and also to-do lists and reminders. I now want to talk a little about assignment planning, as some of you may have had exams converted into new assignments that you're only just starting to work on at the moment, so you may be at the start of this assignment planning process for those, and you may have other assignments where you're much further through as you're expecting to hand them in already at this time. So firstly, we may need to select a question. We don't always need to do this step. Sometimes the questions are selected for us, and sometimes it might be a more complex step for something like a research proposal. I'd then recommend doing a brief plan of what you would like to include, and within that, think about the information audit. So what do you already know about this topic? Identify gaps in your knowledge, areas that you definitely need to do some research on, questions that you don't know, and sometimes you won't actually know what you don't know at this stage. So that's why we then need to do some planning and preliminary research. After we've done a little bit of research on the topic and increased our knowledge, we can then go back and revise our essay plan to add in what we've just learned about, and then we need to do some further in-depth research. And you can see as we move down this assignment planning list that we have some arrows here, and this is to represent the fact that research and writing is not a linear process. We will need to go back and forwards between different stages. So we may start writing but then realise we need to do some more research. We may need to replan our structure. The last three items on this list, review and revise our draft, proofread and edit and feedback, are really vital, and I would recommend that you don't miss them out. So once you are happy with what you've written, always review and revise it. So go back and read it in detail, check that all your sentences make sense, make sure that you've got evidence where you need evidence, add in citations and references, and check these are correct where needed. Have a look at the structure, check if it makes logical sense and move around paragraphs or sentences as needed. And then there's the proofreading stage, and this is where we're now looking in more detail at things like the grammar and the spelling, and perhaps those smaller errors that we didn't pick up during the review and revision stage. It's also useful to get somebody else to proofread your work if you can, I would always recommend asking somebody who's not studying on your course, as they will be able to read it then from a non-contextual point of view, and they may pick up things in terms of the grammar and the spelling that you've missed. I would also recommend utilising feedback from previous assignments. So whilst feedback is given in relation to a specific assignment, the comments are often transferable and related to skills that you can put into practice for future assignments. So for example, you may get comments about the quality of your sources and the need to improve these, or your critical analysis skills and the need to be more critical rather than descriptive. This will still be important for your future assignments as well. In terms of planning your research, it's important to think about what types of sources you need and where you're going to find them, and putting a little bit of effort and thought into the planning of the research stage rather than diving right in can help you with wasted time. So the research process can often take quite a long time, so you want to make sure that you're doing this as efficiently as possible. We want to only make sure we're reading things that are relevant and on track to help us answer that question. As well as actually finding the material, we also need to plan in time for the reading and also the thinking time, because this is often the stage that will take us more time than just finding that research. Now at the moment we don't have access to any of the physical library resources, so we need to utilise the great collection of online resources that we have, which is a collection of over 300,000 ebooks and over 64 million journal articles. These can all be accessed via Locate, our online catalogue, and I'm just going to do a demo of a new feature that we've got at the moment to help you find ebooks. If I go into Locate, so you should now be able to see the home page of the Locate catalogue, and I'm going to do a search for raccoons. And you can see that we now have this new option for books and more online only. So if we select this, we will now only get results for ebooks, and everything we find will be accessible online. You can see the online access link underneath each of the results, and when we click this, it opens up the full details of the record and takes us down to this View It section, which shows us where we can access it. And here we actually have two access links, eBook Central or EBSCO. I'm going to select eBook Central, and it will ask me to sign in. So here I'm using my university username at coventry.ac.uk and my password, and it will then give me access to this resource. Now when we're in the actual ebooks, this may look different depending on the platform we're accessing it through. We've got the option to read online here or download the whole book. Sometimes there may be some restrictions on how much we can download, and it tells us here that we've got unlimited access to this book. Sometimes we may only have access for one user or 3 users, for example, at one time. So if you're trying to access a book and you're not able to, just check if it has got that limited access, as that may be the reason why you can't access it at that exact moment in time. I'm going to select Read Online and just show you some of the features that we have in ebooks. So we always have this search within the book option. The format may look different than this depending on the platform, but somewhere you will have an option to search within the book. So this will help us navigate the sections that are really important for our particular assignment. So I may be specifically looking at the habitat of raccoons, and I can do a search just for my keyword, and in this particular platform it then shows you which sections of the book have mentions to our keyword. We can use these arrows to go into it, and we can click directly to pages that mention our keywords. The other thing we can do on the top row here, we've got some features. So we can highlight, we can add notes, and we can bookmark. So we can actually interact with these ebooks far more than we could with a physical library book. And these will not appear to other people who are reading the book, they will just appear to us whilst we're using it. I'm now going to go back to the PowerPoint presentation. You can still access online journal articles in the same way that you did before, and we still have access to try and get hold of things that we may not have a subscription to. So if you want access to a journal article that we don't have a subscription to, from the homepage of Locate you can access the document supply service and put a request in. If you need a book that we only have a physical copy of, then if it's a topic search that you've done, such as I did for raccoons, I would recommend doing the ebook only search, and then you can find titles that we do have on that topic. However, there may be some instances where you may have a reading list or another title recommended to you by an academic that we only have in physical format. In that situation, I would recommend getting in touch with your academic liaison librarian, who can then look into if it is possible for us to purchase an ebook copy. It isn't always possible because they're not always published in ebook format, but we can look at what we can do. The other thing you can do as well is look at your subject guide. So all courses or groups of courses have a subject guide online, where this will give you useful resources specific to your subject. So from the home page of Locate, as you can see on the screen there, there's a button in the centre for subject guides. If you click in there and select your subject area or perhaps a group of subjects, then you'll be able to access your subject guide. In terms of managing these academic texts, this can be quite challenging, so this is something that we want to do at a high energy time for us. And I would recommend breaking it into manageable chunks so that it doesn't seem too overwhelming. And try and use those features that we've just demonstrated to navigate to the sections of the source that you need so that you're only reading what is relevant to you. We want to read at that productive time for us, those high energy times, and use those features to help save time. In terms of note making, some of us may prefer to handwrite notes when we're interacting with texts, but for those of you who prefer digital tools, here is a selection of note-making apps. There are many out there. Again, these are ones that are both free on either iOS or Android devices, and also I've included Microsoft OneNote there, which we discussed earlier. In terms of health and well-being, there may be things that you need to talk to somebody about. So, extensions and deferrals, for example, if you need more extension than what has already been given or a deferral, I would recommend reaching out and talking to somebody. So whether that's your module leader, the course director, somebody in the health and wellbeing team, sharing that problem can help getting it off your chest, and taking a small amount of action will help you feel much better about the situation. Some of the usual suggestions that I would make about health and wellbeing might actually not be very possible right now. So I might normally talk about getting a lot of exercise. Now, we're a little bit limited on what we can do there. So what I would recommend is adapting your usual routines. I would also recommend eating healthily where you can, eating food that is suitable for brain power and helping brain productivity and concentration. But this doesn't mean not having treats at all, and we can especially build those treats in to our break rewards as well. Another thing that may be useful for you at this time is mindfulness. This helps to improve concentration and helps us to feel calmer during stressful situations. There's a useful link to Mind's website with some mindfulness exercises and tips, and this link can be found in the quick guide just above where you found this recording. Again, we have some health and wellbeing support from both internal university departments and external support, and again these links can be found in that quick guide. So we've got a link there to the student health and wellbeing portal. There's the mental health and wellbeing support zone, which is both for staff and students, and an external site there, the Big White Wall. You can still get academic skills support from the Centre for Academic Writing and Sigma. Again, these links to their resources and how you can get in touch with them and book appointments can be found on the quick guide link. Further library support can be found at the websites listed on the screen. Thank you very much for listening to the recording.